Every 10 years for the past 30 years, the Fantastic Four peek their heads back into the world of cinema, and then something goes wrong and they have to go back into hibernation. The team is often referred to as Marvel's first family because while they're technically not the first characters introduced in that world, they were the first published title under the brand as we know it today, and one of the first collaborations between Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, ushering in the Marvel Age. They've been a nearly constant mainstay in Cape Comics for almost 65 years and were a foundational pillar of the biggest cross-media franchise of all time. But they've had it rough in Hollywood since the very beginning. The original movie was basically made to satisfy a contract loophole so a producer could hang on to the rights for a little longer and scam a hardworking and extremely dedicated cast and crew into making a movie that they had no idea was never meant to come out. I highly empathize with the 1994 version of the Fantastic Four, and I think you should watch my video about why those people got totally unfairly treated. The 2015 Fantastic Four is that one, but 2005's Fantastic Four is the middle child that fared a little better than its predecessor and successor. It actually came out! It had a decent budget for the time, and it did well enough to get a sequel. I was 6 or 7 when it came out. I watched it all the time as a kid, but frankly it's not something I really have nostalgia goggles for. But I think there's some cool stuff here that's worth praising. That being said, I think I may be the first person on the internet that will want to review this and its sequel through the lens of it being a big-budget remake of the 1994 film, and keeping that context heavily in focus throughout. The story of Fantastic Four in cinema hasn't been one full of triumph, and maybe we can get to the bottom of why even their most successful outing so far wasn't even really that successful either. This video is brought to you by Marvel Mystic Mayhem. Mystic Mayhem is a brand new Marvel team-based tactical RPG, free-to-play premium mobile game. Highly underrated Ghost Rider villain Nightmare has trapped tons of unique Marvel heroes and villains in the dreamscape, forcing them to confront their greatest nightmares in a brand new Marvel story. So it's up to you to assemble a team of Marvel heroes and villains to enter their nightmares and help them overcome their fears in a more unique and personal story for every character. You can build a team of 3 characters with diverse strategies to battle your way through Nightmare's forces and unique and dynamic environments that react to your playstyle. The character designs range from modern or more classic and comic book styled costumes. And you know I love the classic looks for all my favorite Marvel heroes and villains. You can also try out Nightfall mode, a boss challenge that encourages you to discover new tactics in battles. Plus there's Game of Khonshu, which has that awesome roguelike gameplay where you get to randomly pick from a bunch of heroes before facing waves of tough enemies. Follow my link in the description or scan the QR code above to pre-register now so you can jump right in on July 25th when the game goes live. You won't want to miss the fun. Now back to the video. In 1983, German producer Bernd Eichinger convinced Stan Lee to sell him the film rights on the cheap for the Fantastic Four, one of Marvel's biggest ongoing comics. Eichinger then spent the next 2 decades struggling to get the project off the ground because of its hefty financial requirements, swindling a bunch of talented people just looking for their big break and getting away with it, recruiting and then losing big-name directors like Chris Columbus, and then finally getting the damn thing made, only to realize he didn't like the final result that much.
When Bernd Eichinger came out of the screening room at Fox after the first big Fantastic Four studio picture, he came out with him and Robert Kulzer, who was an executive assistant at that time when we were doing our version of it. Bernd Eichinger and Robert came out of the screening room, and Bernd Eichinger looked at Robert Kulzer and said, "Oli's version is better." Robert told me that when I was in LA visiting with him a few years ago. He didn't have to tell me. He told it to me. He volunteered that. I'd never heard that story all these years, and I damn near burst into tears right there in his office.
4D chess over here, this guy. But hey, it did get released. After decades of development hell, 2005 saw the big screen debut of the Fantastic Four, produced by 20th Century Fox and in part by Constantine Films. Oh, sorry, that's the typo. No deeper meaning there, just a typo. The film follows the aftermath of 5 astronauts being bathed in unknown radiation that mutates them all into superpowered beings. I say 5 because this is taking a page out of the 2004 Ultimate Fantastic Four's playbook and having Victor Von Doom be on their mission with them is a quick and convenient way to get him some powers too. This kind of flies in the face of everything interesting about Doctor Doom, but we're going to do it again in 2015, so get used to him being part of their origin story. The four of them unexpectedly become celebrity superheroes following their transformation, and spend a lot of time using their newfound fame to fund their efforts to cure themselves. Meanwhile, their pal Victor's own transformation turns him into a ruthless villain bent on petty revenge against his board members. His assistant, Caped Crusader Batman, has to lock him away to protect the world for another day. Surprisingly, this one covers a few of the same plot beats from the original film, but with a sleek mid-2000s extreme sports kind of makeover. Doom keeps the FF stuck in one place where they learn about their powers, though it's more indirect in this version because he tries to be their friend for a little while. Ben Grimm temporarily leaves the team because he feels hopeless, wanders around the city, meets Alicia Masters, and loses his powers and regains them just in time to help defeat Doom. The Human Torch has a big CGI sequence where he races against a deadly projectile weapon fired by Doom. It's crazy how far that technology went in a decade. And we end on Reed and Sue taking their relationship to the next step. Less is more! Immediately you have to praise the cast for this iteration of the team. I really like all four of these actors as these characters, even if over time I've grown to see Chris Evans more as Captain America than Human Torch. He does a decent job playing off Johnny Storm's cockiness and at times irresponsible nature. Ioan Gruffudd is a great pick for Reed Richards and works as the nerdy but kind-hearted leader that keeps them all together.
Well, he's one great big flamer.
Michael Chiklis does a wonderful job of portraying the kindness and the sadness of Ben Grimm, the most loyal member of the team who struggles with his powers changing his appearance to a more monstrous form than his friends. And Jessica Alba is a wonderful Sue Storm, the most powerful member of the team who is a near intellectual match for Reed and definitely matches the sarcasm of her brother Johnny. John Byrne is a jerk-ass. The cast have solid chemistry and fit their respective characters well. The friendship between Reed and Ben is a particular standout among the character dynamics. Though I'll say the whole family dynamic isn't as emphasized as it should be, and they often tend to come across more as just friends at best and co-workers at worst. They're forced together by the situation they're in, and their bond doesn't feel as ride or die as the 1994 version did. Those guys all seemed like a family well before any of this superpower shit even took off. While the 2005 version isn't quite there yet well after that point. And it's not happening totally organically in this one. That's something that the sequel definitely improves upon. Now the awkward part. I don't really like Julian McMahon's Doctor Doom, but he unfortunately just passed away earlier this month. Like a day after I decided to do this video. So now it feels weird to be criticizing his character because he just died. Now it feels like I'm trashing on him. But also, it would be really disingenuous to lie and say I did like his Doom just because he's no longer with us when I really don't. Okay, in all fairness, I think the vast majority of the problem is the script. He could have maybe done a better Doom if they hadn't watered down the character so much. The real Doctor Doom was the son of a sorceress and came from a poor nomadic Romani tribe in Europe. He had a gifted mind for science and was a genius inventor, but also had an aptitude for magic inherited from his late mother. When he was in his late teens, he was given a scholarship to the same college as Reed Richards. A natural rivalry formed because they were both the smartest person the other one had ever met by that point, and Victor had a pretty high opinion of himself. Though he made a mistake during an experiment and was permanently disfigured. He fled back to Europe, built himself a nearly indestructible suit of armor to hide his face, and then used his mastery of technology and mysticism to take over a small, isolated nation and become its king. Now he rules as the tyrant leader of Latveria with powers that are an even mix of magic and science. He has an extremely massive ego, and he's hell-bent on proving to the world that he's smarter and better than Reed Richards, the one person he ever met that made him feel inferior. Though he'd never admit to that. He also has his own army of android decoys called Doombots that stand in for him to make it really hard to apprehend or even kill him because you never know where the real Doom could be at any given time. He's a powerhouse of a villain that can rival both Iron Man and Doctor Strange in their respective fields of expertise. And he's had battles with just about every major Marvel hero. But no one gets under his armor more than that damn Mr. Fantastic. This movie gave me such a terrible understanding of the character as a kid because they didn't use any of this, except that he and Reed went to college together. For a long time, I wasn't even sure what his powers were supposed to be because this movie barely covers that at all. The movie made me think he was a boring character when I was little, and it took me years to read some actual Doom books and learn how wrong they were. Here he's more like a Norman Osborn type businessman. He's really, really similar to Norman Osborn.
Our stock has never been higher.
Wonderful news, Norman. Wonderful.
These freaks on the front page, your company's in the obituaries.
As a matter of fact, it's the reason we're selling the company.
What?
The board's in agreement. The bank's lost enough already.
Wait a minute.
The board expects your resignation in 30 days.
It's too late, Victor.
Do you know how much money I've invested in this company?
Victor, stop.
I started this company. You know how much I sacrificed?
This isn't a negotiation, it's a notification. We're pulling out.
We're out, Norman.
About the IPO. No hard feelings, right? Nothing personal.
Out am I?
Nothing personal, Ned. But I'm not going anywhere.
What were the side effects?
Violence, aggression, and insanity. We need to take the whole line back to formula.
We need to keep this confidential.
Victor, this disease is progressive, degenerative. I have to notify someone.
Back to formula.
That's terrible news.
The cosmic rays on the space station give him electricity powers and turn his skin into metal as an easier justification for his look. He's not wearing a cool high-tech suit, he just looks like that. He's not a magic user, his only means of fighting the Fantastic Four are ill-defined electricity/energy blasts. His understanding of science is better than the average person, but he doesn't seem like a real intellectual rival for Reed like he should. And I guess throwing magic on top of everything else in this movie was a tall order for suspension of disbelief, so they just didn't even bother with it. There's so little time for Victor in this movie compared to setting up all the other four characters that they cut every possible corner for him, and he's just such a half-assed adaptation of one of the best villains in comics. I won't say this was McMahon's fault at all. I think he was doing the best he could with a poor representation of Von Doom, and there's at least one or two brief scenes where he starts to shine as the character despite it, fleeting as they may be. I really wish he got another chance to do this character more properly, but it just never worked out that way. That being said, the 1994 movie has a way more faithful version of Doom and took great pains to maintain his origin story. Joseph Culp even did some personal research on the character and included his own unscripted references to Doom's Romani heritage to make the character feel more authentic.
Doing the role of Dr. Doom was clear to me that this was a huge responsibility to bring, this epic-sized character to the screen for the first time. And how was I going to do that with, not a lot of time, limited budget? There were things about Dr. Doom and Victor Von Doom's past that I, of course, as a kind of method actor, wanted to insert in there, like, was of the Romani tribe, that he, in Latveria, that his mother, was a witch or a sorceress and was killed and is trapped by Mephisto in a hell realm. As I saw it, he was motivated, I chose this, to free her, to free his mother. I knew the script wasn't going to go too far into that, so what could I do? And so I had this medallion, which with runic, inscriptions on it. And right before the experiment goes on, he takes the medallion and kisses it for empowerment and luck. It's just a little touch, not explained by the script in any way, but you get a sense that this Victor Von Doom has something going on that's far deeper and darker than you might expect.
Culp himself is not Romani, but I'll say that's far more respect to that aspect of the character than either of the next two versions even tried. I still think it sucks that Hollywood will pretend to care about representation when it's convenient, but when it's time to actually put in the work for an important part of a major character's backstory, they'll always just default to marquee value.
I wish that at some point, whatever happens, how Marvel is going to depict Doctor Doom, that they might integrate some of that and consider even to cast, a Romani actor, to be more culturally sensitive to that. We're doing that in many other types of casting today. Why not do it with Victor Von Doom?
Hey, Robert Downey Jr. was in the running for Doctor Doom in this movie? Can you imagine how everything would have gone if that happened? The neat and handy thing about following the original comic version of Doom's story is that his origin happened a decade before every other character's, and they're barely related to it at all. Going the Ultimate Comics route actually made the story harder for them to tell because they had to set him up at the same time as everyone else instead of just having that out of the way already ages ago. It's a new take, though. The new part is that it's more complicated to turn into a screenplay for a 2-hour film and makes the character worse. At least they didn't keep that he was a descendant of Dracula and working for an evil Illuminati cabal and had hoofed goat legs, and then used an alternate universe version of Sue and Johnny's mom from a zombie apocalypse world as a decoy for the Thing to squish to death during Ultimatum. Hey, remember when we kept using the Ultimate Universe as the default for adaptations just because it was newer? Like, being newer somehow meant it was automatically better, even though it rarely ever was? What a dumbass time that was. Give me that Lee Kirby goodness. Yeah! Oh, yeah, that's right, Galactus Cloud. Jesus, hang on, we'll get there. There's also a little bit of that distinctive mid-2000s shame stink on this movie, where they're making a superhero movie because it's a valuable, recognizable IP, but they're kind of embarrassed about it and want to tone down the campier parts like the costumes. These are the jumpsuits they were wearing during their space mission when they got their powers. They picked the darkest shade of blue for these uniforms imaginable, and it has these black straps all over it. And the 4 logo is pushed to the side like a little badge instead of a prominent crest on full display. I mean, God, guys, it's just a number 4. It's not like it's a silhouette of an animal. At least the makeup and costume for the Thing is really awesome. His face is expressive enough for a huge range of emotions because it's all prosthetics on his real face. He can move very naturally in it, so he doesn't look like a cumbersome mascot costume. He's just the right size for the Thing, too. I know some people said he's, supposed to be bigger, but he's not supposed to be in the Hulk size class, which is why it's all the more impressive that he can fight him so well. Usually the Thing was depicted as being a little shorter than Reed Richards even, despite being way bulkier. I think I prefer the overall texture of the 1994 Thing costume a little bit more, since it comes across more coarse and rough. Well, this one does look a little bit smooth and rubbery at times, but this costume is still a marvel of practical effects, and the Thing is just such a highlight of this movie in general. He's so lovable, and his tragedy becoming his greatest strength is the most compelling character arc here, even if they did cut out most of it. I like that they used a Toy Biz Thing action figure for that joke. It's always fun when real-life merch ends up as a prop in one of these movies, like all those Mark Bagley Spidey balloons in Spider-Man 3. As for the CGI effects, they mostly hold up pretty well to this day, but the movie is pretty light on them considering there's so few proper action sequences. Not to be iconoclastic, but everything looks decent except for some sketchy VFX on Mr. Fantastic's drastically plastic and elastic powers compared to his sarcastic, dysplastic, monastic, and pyroclastic companions. Making a stretchy character look good with VFX is so hard that sometimes they go out of their way to avoid it, even today, so I'll give them a pass for struggling with this one. In some shots it works. It helps when he's wearing his costume and you're not seeing his bare skin stretched out because the textures get all rough and it looks rubbery in a fake PS3 way. Johnny and Sue's powers look great. No complaints, really. Well, I guess, I don't know why the force fields kind of look like blue smoke. Everything in the 2000s looked like blue smoke in superhero movies. There's a lot of blue smoke. Both of their powers cause a wardrobe malfunction and they end up naked in front of strangers at different intervals in the movie. At least the Thing wears pants for the entirety of the runtime. I never understood why she had to do this, by the way. Johnny and Reed just run around and somehow get past the police barricade on their own. Like, I'm not understanding how this benefited the situation. Like, what did she do to... Is there a scene missing to explain why Sue sneaking around naked was important, other than, like, fan service? I'm nowhere near the first guy to point this out, but the criticism rings true that this movie is way too bogged down by being an origin story. They spend so long belaboring the team getting and understanding their powers that they don't get any time to really do any Fantastic Four stuff with those powers. And that's not fighting crime per se, it's more about wacky sci-fi adventures and exploration. The Fantastic Four are an interesting case where fighting crime is more of a thing they do to maintain good public relations and funding their actual interest, which is just doing science. Reed Richards is always taking his family on exploratory missions to other universes, unseen corners of space, or discovering new and strange forms of life. Fantastic Four is like Star Trek with superpowers, but the movies tend to keep them so grounded on Earth, and their science is so small potatoes. So much of the movie is just in this cramped Baxter Building lab set doing tests on their powers that they don't get to do or see much else. They have all these cool otherworldly foes like the Mole Man who lives in a subterranean society with an ancient species of creatures, Namor, the king of Atlantis, the Skrulls from an alien world bent on conquering the galaxy, and yet, most of the time in these movies, they're just here in New York. In this one, they're mostly just in this lab, hanging out. I want to go to the negative zone and punch a nihilist in the nads, damn it! As much as stupid, wrong people prattle on about how we've done Spider-Man's origin story too many times, that was told very efficiently twice in a row. Tobey's Spidey origin was done by the 54-minute mark, and there was still a whole other hour of the movie with him just doing Spider-Man stuff and having various battles with his nemesis. The Amazing Spider-Man lags behind a bit and gets his origin stuff situated by the 55-minute mark. But still, half of the movie is done with and the hero is ready to go and do his whole thing. The Fantastic Four become known by the public at about the 37-minute mark, but don't fully accept their status as superheroes until pretty much just the climax. We're just spending so much time establishing, and it never quite feels like the team is fully formed until right after they beat Doom. But then the movie is over by that point. I know it seems silly to be breaking down the flow of story into numbers and runtimes like this, because art isn't quantifiable by numbers, but I'm just trying to illustrate that the story feels sluggish and takes a lot longer to get the point across than necessary. I'm not saying it's a race to see who can blast through the origin story the fastest, but if you do it efficiently, it frees up more room and allows your movie to do a lot more. Just because it is an origin story doesn't mean that's all it has to be. You can tread that ground and then go a little further and still tell the story in a way that does it justice. There's a balance. A lot of earlier superhero movies really struggled with this. The origin story takes up so much of the movie's time and energy, and by the time it's over with, they have so little runtime left to do anything else that they're scrambling to the end and just have to abruptly rush to beat the bad guy. I'd have liked to have more time devoted to Doom and the team being at odds, more encounters to showcase their strengths of both sides of the conflict, and develop Doom as a better villain, Doom having a more interesting plan that they had to stop than just blowing them up with a rocket. What the fuck? But yeah, this is almost a slice-of-life movie about the team just living together in the Baxter Building and occasionally doing fun little jaunts like going to Johnny's stunt bike show. There were more scenes of them getting out of the lab and doing some character development that were unfortunately cut, like this dinner scene with Sue and Victor where he crushes Diamond in his bare hands. The thing I really lament about losing are the scenes with Ben Grimm getting to know Alicia Masters, because I just think they're the cutest damn couple ever, and I wish their relationship got way more screen time. They just kind of meet, and then they're together, and there's nothing in the middle. These are some really good scenes that they should have found time for. Plus, there was a cool Puppet Master tease in there. But even then, all these deleted scenes I'm talking about are still just them chilling and being civilians and doing pretty normal things. The film has so little action that the PS2 tie-in game had to invent way more stuff for them to do to turn into fun levels. Like, even more than those types of games normally did. They added Mole Man, Diablo, Nick Fury, Dragon Man, and Puppet Master to give the team some actual explorations and villains to fight. The final battle with Doom has some of the classic team learning to work together and doing combo moves with their powers kind of stuff that we all live for. But I just can't help but think it'd be better with a better version of Doom. They take advantage of his metal skin and then turn him into a human statue. This is one of the first times I ever really remembered a post-credit scene in a Marvel movie teasing a sequel, and I think it was done pretty well here. I can see why this became a trend, though unfortunately 20 years later the concept has been run so far into the ground that it's more of a joke now. I think a lot of criticisms about 2005's Fantastic Four from the time are still valid. It meanders a bit too much with its pacing, its villain is particularly weak, and overall it just doesn't do a whole lot of fun stuff with the characters in comparison to its contemporaries. But there's an undeniable charisma to the cast, and maybe you roll with the laid-back vibes. If you aren't really aching to get to the next adventure, maybe it's fun as just a weird little slice-of-life movie where the Fantastic Four mostly just hang out in a low-stakes, character-driven plot. Now that I'm revisiting it, I do think there's a lot to be desired here, but I still can't bring myself to dislike it. Maybe I do have a nostalgia bias for this movie that I didn't notice until I was actually watching it. Ugh, it's not perfect just because I liked it when I was 7. It's not perfect just because I liked it when I was 7. However, it's definitely not bad either. A middling experience that still has some highlights and shows potential for growth. A sequel could really capitalize on having all the damn basics out of the way and just run away with the FF in a way this movie couldn't. That being said, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I agree with Eichinger.
Ollie's version is better.
I always get mad at YouTube for not putting my videos in the subscription box because people will comment, "Finally, Xavier uploads again after all these years," not knowing 3 other videos came out within the last month already. So maybe that stupid bell icon thing will help you remember I exist. If you want other ways to support the channel, you can always go hit up that Patreon for early videos and exclusive stuff because it's just $1. I'm not kidding, it's only $1. Isn't that cool? If just 5% of the people subscribe to me donated only $1 a month, I could make videos even faster and keep my house. You can also check out our merch on TeePublic, or just buy some of my random stuff on eBay. I have a pretty substantial collection of old toys that are still in the box in perfect condition, so go take a look in case you find something you like. And lastly, since this is a YouTube video and you probably play Fortnite, drop my creator code XavierGM next time you buy a silly dance or a cool character skin. Really helps me out. See you next time!